Alrighty, welcome everyone to our TELedvisors webinar for May 2018. My name is Kahiwa Sabaya, and the idea for our session today was to give an opportunity for all of our members to share a small project or a project that's in progress or something that they'd worked on that might never ever make it to be a proper research article or something like that, but a way for us to be able to start to share some of the work that we do, because I'm pretty confident we all do really, really cool stuff that I'd love to hear more about. So we've had a number of fantastic volunteers step up for our first showcase, or show and tell. Alrighty, we are going to power on through and have our fantastic, super underlined, wonderful Sarah Thorneycroft coming up next from UNE.
Hello. I'm not going to slides at you, so you can either look at my amazing visage or just stare at the blank screen, whatever works for you. So what I wanted to talk about today, I should check that everyone can hear me. Can you hear me? Yep, great. What I wanted to talk about today is a small thing that is actually small, that's somewhat of a diversion for me. So I don't normally do things in real life, and I also don't normally do things that are designed around people's fields. So this has been an interesting foray for me. My role now is I'm a senior lead designer in teaching and learning, which is what our current central directorate is called. Keeps changing. Doing strategic change projects, and so yes, I am the queen of terrible pop culture design metaphors. So that's a little course design metaphor back there. I'm working on a 2-year curriculum renewal process for the business school here, business faculty. And so we want to try and overhaul the whole curriculum and come up with some quite innovative new courses and products and things. But because we're a university and people have agendas and feelings, and there's changing management and things, I'm sure it's not unique to us that we've had tensions between central directorates and schools over the years. We've had runs of poor leadership or no leadership, or anyway, so over time there's been lots of tensions that have evolved, and people have various feelings about strategic change projects. And getting people to buy in and feel comfortable with the process and feel included and like their input is valued is a tricky thing, which is something that I've not had to wrangle with before working in my little rogue universe that I was previously working in. So you should know that our campus, though probably seems somewhat small compared to some of you, is still a bit of a geographical sprawl. And we are at the top of a hill. The central unit's at the top of a hill, and the business school is at the bottom of a hill. And you don't realise when you're sitting at the top of the hill how big that hill actually is. Yes, it's very metaphorical as well as literal. And so aside from conceptual barriers with constantly inviting people to come into our space to engage with projects, there's a physical barrier, like it's a big hill, and it just adds to the difficulty of people coming into our space to engage with our projects. And people can kind of feel like things are being done to them, visited upon them from on high, from central directorates and executives and things. Anyway, at one point the suggestion came up, which actually came from the business school and not from me or the central unit, was why don't we have a project space in our building? So there was a room that was not being well utilised, just from a timetabling perspective. And so we thought, why not? Let's try it. Let's see what happens when, instead of constantly inviting people into our space and soliciting people's involvement, why don't we go into their space and see what happens when we meet them where they are and have a physical space where they can come and engage with project work. You know, we might be able to have things up on the walls. I was kind of running with a beware of the leopard metaphor, but even for people who have read Hitchhikers, that's fairly obscure. But just in terms of having information available where people can drop in and see it and not feel like they're missing things, is something that I thought was really interesting and worth trying. And so what we've done is taken this room, but we're still waiting for an order of furniture. So we will invest in kind of upgrading the room and putting in some nice flexible furniture to make this into a really interesting space. So we're still waiting on that. It's in an interim phase at the moment. But how it's gone so far, I should say that I now work in there 2 days a week. And so I'm physically available in their space. And people drop in. I was really interested whether they would or not, but they do. It's strategically located next to a tea room. And so people will drop past as they go on the way to the tea room and they'll stick their head in and say, hey, what's going on? Or, hey, I've had this idea. Or, what do you think about this? Or, can you tell me about that? And we've been able to put some things up on the walls that people can come and engage with. I've got a box of Lego that people can come and play with just to help aid their thinking, or my adventures into the Lego serious play methodology are probably a story for another day. But yeah, look, it's been really interesting so far to see that it has started to pan out as we hoped, that people would engage with it and physically come into the space. And they have been doing it. And I'm just looking at the chat that's going on at the moment. It's quite funny. Anyway, so it's something that will kind of be a work in progress as we go along the project, and the purpose of the room might evolve as we go along. And, you know, at the end of it, we might look back and go, okay, well, what did we achieve with this room? And what happened in this physical space, and what did we learn from it? Can it be a way that we do strategic projects in the future, going into the space of the targeted area, rather than holing up in our central silos, and see whether that helps affect change more effectively. I've had my 1 minute warning, but I think that's about all I've got to say. So it is a much smaller thing than the other things. It's just kind of part of an overall project. There's lots of other things going on, but I just kind of wanted to ramble for a bit about my adventures in doing something actually in physical space for once.
Wonderful, thank you, Sarah. So there are some good questions coming through in the chat, and I know that you probably had a look at them. Were there any in particular that you thought you could answer in the next couple of minutes?
Wendy, how am I going to measure effectiveness? Organically. This part of the project doesn't have any like hard deliverables attached to it or anything. It's just kind of a suck it and see what happens. And so I think it will just be people's qualitative feedback from asking people how they felt about how the space worked along the duration of the project, coupled with my observations. Touchy-feely, yes. Fields are uncharted territory for me. So this is, it will be an interesting ride to see what comes out of it. But yeah, I don't have plans to do any kind of quantitative measurement of success, or, you know, how much of the change impact can be attributed to that room or anything.
Thanks very much, Sarah. So I know there were a couple of questions kind of earlier on around, you know, what type of space it is and how you negotiated that space.
So it was just a meeting room. It was one of those really horrific bog standard meeting rooms with big long rectangular tables in it and a video conferencing unit. And so at the moment we've just evicted the rectangular tables in favour of a few armchairs and cushions and a circular table. But we are waiting on some the trendy Ottoman type flexible wheelie whiteboardy surface furniture. So how that room actually looks and works will change over time. No green screens or anything.
It looks like this is another really, really interesting conversation that's got people intrigued, particularly looking at some of the different ways that everyone's describing how they're located and connecting with their academics. So again, I'm going to suggest that we continue this conversation on the forum, and it certainly sounds to me like we could have like a whole webinar just talking about these kinds of spaces and how we interact with the colleagues that we work with and partner with and the different approaches and what's working and what's not. So peg that in the back of our minds. So everyone, thank you. Please join me in thanking Sarah for having a chat with us and presenting this particular idea.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.